You might think you know Carlos Alcaraz, the Spanish tennis phenom tearing through records and rewriting what it means to be a modern champion. But stick with me, because the deeper story beneath the stats is even more insane than the headlines. This isn't just about Grand Slams and rankings. It's about how a kid from Murcia became arguably the most exciting tennis star on the planet today. Let's dive into the top 10 facts about Carlos Alcaraz. And trust me, some of these will surprise even hardcore tennis fans. 1. The youngest world #1 in modern tennis history, Carlos Alcaraz didn't just break onto the tennis scene. He exploded onto it. Imagine being so good that, while most peers are still learning how to handle professional pressure, you climb all the way to world #1 before turning 20. That's exactly what Carlos did. At just 19 years old, he achieved the top ranking on the ATP Tour, making him the youngest man ever to reach No.1 in the Open era. This isn't some fluke. It was the result of a year filled with stunning consistency, gutsy comebacks, and sheer fearlessness. When he stepped onto the court during that breakthrough season, opponents weren't just playing a rising star. They were playing someone who truly believed he was the best in the world. For tennis fans, that moment felt seismic, a clear signal that a new era was officially here, led by a teenager with a champion's heart. 2. Multi-surface master. Before age 23, tennis used to be a game where players were categorized: the clay specialist, the grass wizard, the hardcore crusher. Not anymore. Carlos plays elite tennis on every surface and wins on every surface. He's won major titles on grass, at Wimbledon, on clay at Roland Garros, and on hard courts at the US Open, all before most players would dream of just one major title. He's not just versatile, he's dominant everywhere the tour goes. 3. Grand Slam champion with an unstoppable drive. Major titles define tennis greatness, and Carlos doesn't just have one. He has multiple Grand Slams before most players even hit their peak. What makes this crazy impressive isn't just the number, it's how he won them. Time and again, Carlos has battled through long, draining matches where most players would fold, and instead found clutch shots when it mattered most. He's taken down seasoned champions, navigated tight tiebreakers, and refused to blink under pressure. That grit, the ability to stay mentally locked in even when every muscle is screaming, is part of what separates champions from contenders. Some athletes have raw talent, some have physical gifts, but Carlos has something rarer: a relentless competitive spirit. He refuses to accept defeat, and that mindset has produced unforgettable moments. Matches where he seemed unstoppable, gritty rallies where he barely blinked, and victories that left even seasoned critics in awe. When Carlos lifts those big trophies, it's never just about skill, it's about heart. 4. A rivalry that's shaping a generation beyond trophies. One of the most exciting things about Carlos's career so far is who he's competing against. Tennis thrives when there's a real rivalry, and Carlos has one of the most thrilling ones of the modern game. Every time he meets players like Jannik Sinner or Novak Djokovic, it's not just another match. It's a tactical, emotional chess battle. Their clashes have been intense, long, and full of dramatic momentum swings. What makes these rivalries so compelling is how they push Carlos to be even better. You can see him adapt mid-match, change strategy on the fly, and refuse to let even seasoned veterans dictate how the duel goes. Fans aren't just tuning in to see who wins. They're tuning in because they know something electric will happen. The way Carlos battles in these high-stakes moments tells you everything you need to know. He thrives under pressure, constantly evolves, and isn't afraid to stare down the toughest challenges the sport can throw at him. A playing style that redefines athleticism. If tennis had a modern poster child for athleticism, Carlos Alcaraz would be it. His style blends raw power, blistering speed, and creative shot-making in a way that few players have ever managed. One moment, you'll see a thunderous forehand that rockets past his opponent. The next, you'll see him chase down an impossible drop shot with a sprint that seems to defy human limits. But it's not just that he's fast, it's how he uses that speed. He turns defense into offense in a heartbeat, robbing opponents of easy winners and forcing them to dig deeper. That unpredictability keeps fans glued to every point, because you never know what Carlos will do next. Add in his booming serve and aggressive net play, and you've got a player who can dominate from the baseline or finish points with flair. For young, aspiring athletes, he's become the blueprint. Be strong, be fast, be clever, and never stop improving. 6 tattoos that tell his story. Here's a fact that gives a glimpse into Carlos' personality, away from the baseline. He doesn't just collect accolades, he commemorates them on his body. After winning major championships, Carlos has chosen to mark those moments with tattoos that represent the dates or symbols of his biggest victories. Unlike many athletes who keep personal life separate from competition, Carlos wears his career milestones proudly. Each tattoo becomes a chapter in his story, a permanent reminder of what he's accomplished and what drives him forward. It's more than just ink, it's a mindset. Every time he looks at those symbols, he's reminded of the sweat, the doubts he fought through, the opponents he overcame, and the mountains he still intends to climb. For fans, this makes him more than a champion. It makes him relatable. He's documenting his legacy in a way that feels personal, artistic, and deeply human. 7. Tennis roots and family bonds. Carlos didn't rise out of nowhere. He grew up surrounded by tennis. His father was a pro player and coach, and was the one who gave Carlos his first racket. He literally learned the game in a tennis club that his family had ties to going back generations. And to this day, his family, especially his father and brother, travel with him on tour and are credited with his mental comfort and emotional stability. That's not just background detail, that's the foundation of someone who doesn't just play the sport but lives it. 8. A mind for evolution. Not just repetition. Many athletes reach a certain level and then stick to what works. Carlos is the opposite. 5. Even with major titles and elite rankings under his belt, he's constantly tinkering with his game, adding new tactics, refining his serve, and finding smarter ways to dominate points. This is important because today's tennis demands adaptability. Opponents study film, adjust strategies, and exploit weaknesses. But Carlos stays one step ahead by refusing to become predictable. He's not just powerful, he's strategic. Sometimes that means plotting his approach set by set, analyzing how to exploit a rival's backhand, or figuring out when to unleash his most aggressive shots. Coaches and commentators often remark that his mental understanding of matches feels way beyond his years, like he's thinking 3 moves ahead the way chess masters do. That mental flexibility is what separates good players from great champions. Carlos doesn't just rely on talent. He continuously reinvents himself to stay at the top of the sport. 9. The Australian Open. The final piece of the puzzle is of this moment. The only major title missing from Carlos's trophy collection is the Australian Open. It's the one Grand Slam that has eluded him. The one challenge left to complete what tennis fans call a career Grand Slam. This achievement means winning all 4 majors, at least once in a career, a mark of undeniable greatness. And Carlos is incredibly close. Over the past 2 seasons, he's pushed deeper and deeper in Melbourne, battling through heat, long matches, and elite opponents. What makes this pursuit fascinating is not just the physical challenge, it's the mental one. The Australian Open has a reputation for being grueling, with tough conditions and fierce competition from the first round to the finals. For Carlos, this has become the next big mountain to climb, and if he conquers it, he will cement himself among an elite group of legends. Fans are buzzing because this could be his next defining moment, the one that takes him from extraordinary to truly historic. 10. A legacy still in the making. Here's the part that should excite you the most. Carlos Alcaraz's story isn't finished. Most champions reach their peak in their mid to late 20s. But Carlos is already rewriting records in his early 20s. He's broken into the highest echelons of the sport, collected titles, silenced critics, and built rivalries that define a generation. But he still has years of competition ahead, and that means potential, growth, new chapters. The unpredictability of his journey, the endless possibilities is part of what makes following him so thrilling. Will he surpass all-time records? Will he become the winningest player in history? Only time will tell. But what's certain is this. He plays with flair, tenacity, and a love for the game that makes it impossible not to watch. When Carlos steps onto the court, every point feels meaningful, every match feels electric, and every moment feels like history in the making. If you're a fan of tennis, or just love watching a generational talent in real time, then this story isn't over. It's just beginning. Who knows by the time you watch this again? Who knows by the time you watch this again in a year or 2? We might be talking about a record book rewrite. And that's the real power of watching someone like Carlos Alcaraz, not just witnessing greatness, but living through the ascent of a legend. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives on athletes pushing the limits of their sport, hit that like button and stick around. Because trust me, there's plenty more fascinating stories just waiting to be told. Let me know in the comments. What do you think Alcaraz will accomplish next?